This is an audio recording of Mani Irani, Meher Baba's sister and close Mandalay member, discussing her experience of Meher Baba dropping his body, the 69 Darshan which took place shortly after Baba dropped his body, and how she, along with other Mandalay members, found that Baba was just as present after he dropped his body. It is accompanied by an ambient video of the traditional Amartithi celebration that takes place at Meher Center. In his love, the Meher Center wishes you a happy 56th Amartithi.
So you want the story of this shepherd. You see, at the time, after Baba dropped his body, we had no time or room within ourselves for our own feelings. As usual with Baba, as always with Baba, this has to be done, this has to be, and one's attention is occupied in doing what has to be done. It's wonderful the way it worked out with the Begin record also, because Baba had said to Erich that after he dropped his body, we had to play this record of Begin song near Baba. And I would not have had it handy. I would have had to look for it. It would have been some time, and my mind just couldn't concentrate on anything like that. So what had happened a few days earlier, a month earlier maybe, when my brother Adi had come from England for Dara's wedding and with the family, he brought a record from Fred Marks, the Begin, that's sung by A. Hutchinson, and it was played to Baba, and Baba liked it very much. Very good. Had me play it again, very much. Had me play it there with the women's side, third time. He liked it very much. And then, because it was the wedding time coming, and the wedding was really the Darshan time, because Mehra's birthday, and it was like a mini Darshan. It's a beautiful thing. But there was no time for things like that. I just put that record handy on one of the shelves. Said, I'll put it by later when all this is over. So that, there again, that was Baba's hand, and every move, every step that we took was guided by Baba. And after he dropped his body, when Era said, where is the record of Begin and the gramophone? You have to take it with us to Merhaba. And I looked at her, I thought she'd gone, gaga. I said, how could he think of music and gramophone records? And I said, Begin. And he said, yes. Baba told us that at the end, when he dropped his body, the song has to be played. Oh, Begin. Oh, where can it be? And then suddenly I remembered, it was just handy. So that we took along. Then he wanted me to take a few pictures of Baba, a few feet of film. And there again I thought, he'd gone mad. I said, films? How could he think at this time, like this, films? There I was with Mehra and Baba and this whole thing that has happened, films. And he said, look, we're not the only ones. There are many lovers who would want to be here at this time and who cannot. And we have to do our bit. And then he said something that was like a slap, but it helped. He said, this is not the time to start thinking of yourself. We've got to continue to do what Baba wants us to do. What would please Baba? Yeah. It's all right. I got the film. Anyway, the whole thing happened. I'll jump right over when we came back from Guru Prasad. There was the darshan, which in itself was the biggest miracle. We didn't know whether there would be darshan. He'd sent out this circular. He told his lovers, come. They'd all said, we'll come. And there, he stopped his form. So where's the darshan going to be? And Pune. But what's going to happen? What will we do? What will anybody do? Anyway, are we supposed to go? Yeah, we're supposed to go. Because Baba had said in March, we marched to Pune. We remembered that. So we packed up and went to Pune. But what's going to happen? And before that we learned, because Rick Chapman and the others were here, these cables were sent, cables were received. Yes, everybody said, we're coming. And I said, my goodness, they've come, but what will they do? And what are we supposed to do? And then I was just thinking that we were witnesses to the whole thing. Nothing more. We're just witnesses. Baba was doing the whole thing. There they came by chartered planes. They came by hundreds from all over, and Guru Prasad was full and just resounding with his jai, and everybody was saying, when we asked them, what made you come? And they said, well, we had an appointment with God. We had an appointment with Baba, and we came. But you came for darshan? Yes. And we received his darshan. And when we kept hearing that, and it seemed like that, because at one time I remember in the beginning, in the first day, when we had to go at 9 o'clock in Guru Prasad Hall, which was packed from the very first day with our Western family, and Erich announced over the mic that this is it. We began with Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. And they said, now, it is between each one and Baba. Here, Baba used to give darshan seated in this chair. And here you have come today for Baba's darshan. Now it's between Baba and you. You greet him. You don't have to bow. Don't feel that we expect each one of you to bow down or to bend down. And at that moment, I swear, I heard a sigh of relief from many. It was like a little wave. They may have thought that maybe we all have to bend down and go down on our knees and bow down on the pillow, under the chair. And so they were all very relieved. But I tell you, I've watched this with my own eyes. There was not a single one who did not bow down. They would stand before the chair, erect sometimes, Some talked to Baba, some sang to Baba, some just looked to Baba. There they stand, and then as if a hand had hit them behind the knee, like the camel goes down, they'd all go down. And there were tears, and there was... And one Baba lover who looked like an Englishman, I think because he had a cap that looked like a mountaineer, like Robin Hood sort of a thing, and he had shorts, and he stood before Baba, and there again he went down, and he put his head on the pillow, on the footstool, and then he cried, and he sobbed, and he went straight, he was crying, so he got up and went fast to the other room, and hid his face behind the cupboard. And he sobbed his heart out. And we witnessed all this. And then there was this girl. And they were all standing some by the pillar, the marble pillar, just looking into air. As we have seen people, individuals, react after they have had physical darshan of Baba, those who have been touched by him, not all, but those who have had his darshan as it were, well, we were seeing them. And there was one girl about 12, and she kept saying, oh, I'm glad I came. Boy, am I glad I came. Gee, I'm really glad I came. And then when she saw all this, she turned to her mother and she said, I can understand the women crying, Mother, but the men are crying. I can't understand. And then I told her, I said, that's not a crying, Terry. That's a melting. You know how it is when the sun comes out, the snow on the top of the mountains, they melt, and then all the snow that's around our hearts, which we're not aware of, when the sun of his love touches. This is all a melting. This is not a crying. This is a melting that you're watching. So anyway, then, hey, what did he tell me to tell this story? What was it he told me to say? Ah, yes. So all this we witnessed. We witnessed Baba giving darshan. We were kept tremendously busy. Erich was up till 11, 12 in the night in the Rani's room, what we call the Rani's room, where everybody met, volunteers and their duties and the hotels and names coming in and phones ringing, and we had some beautiful volunteers. One of the lots was this Roda Nadi Dubash and Zari, the Pakistani group, Minu and all. And we had quite a good lot of volunteers who were helping with that. But we were so busy. We just didn't know how time went. Then there was the Indian darshan, then there was the Western darshan, and the afternoon there would be the Eastern. It all went through. And then when we came back here, for the first time we felt there was room for our own feelings, for our own... Because before we went to Pune, first thing after Baba dropped his body, and before we went to Pune, suddenly we had this feeling as like when a package that's been tied, suddenly the strings go loose and everything gets scattered out. We had that feeling with Maharazad. We felt suddenly that this was a property, it's a big place, it's all so scattered. Whereas Baba's physical presence, made it all come together so compactly that it was like a house, a home. But now, when Baba dropped his body, when he discarded his form, it was as if the parcel had undone and everything was scattered, everything was big. So we had a conference and we said, when we come back, we wanted to bring everything together. When we come back, we'll close so many of the rooms at this side of the wings. We'll have to retire so many of the servants, staff, domestic staff, and the gardeners whom Baba had to keep. And we'll do this and we'll do that. And we were very happy with the thought that we were going to do all that. And then when we came back from Pune, suddenly again we wanted to expand. It was so compact by then. We wanted to expand. So we built this veranda. We built the bathrooms. We built the toilet. And we didn't know why, really. But in fact, just as in the same way, like when Baba was physically present, his physical presence, but because of that authority of his being, because of the reality that he is, he's physical, his illusory form also gives life to the unreal. Things that seemed very real because of his physical presence. When Baba dropped that form, they all seemed to die. It's like we died. So anyway, when we came back from Guru Prasad, and right in the beginning, for the first time, we were by ourselves. Our hearts and our minds were by ourselves. So we were up there, and we were in the cottage, and we would say, oh, this is where Baba was sleeping. Even then, we didn't cry before each other. We kept our emotions private, where we could do it by ourselves. This way we were giving each other, we were like holding hands and hearts together, which is that Baba makes it possible. Anyway, when we came back then, oh, this is where we used to play the gramophone for Baba. Oh, this is the books we were reading to Baba. Oh, all these things became alive, like these characters out of a storybook. They were all again moving about. It was pantomime, but still, it was all around us. Then as we came out, and suddenly, I didn't know how time had passed, because in the morning I had promised Erich that I would bring along this document that was in my keeping, which Erich wanted me to bring over. It was one of the practical things we had to do. And it was in my keeping, and I had to bring over. And I told him, yes, Erich, I'll bring it over. And I'd forgotten all about it. I hadn't come over this side of the wall. And now it was evening time. The sun was setting. It was dusk. And I suddenly said, my God, the document, that Erich must still be waiting for it. So I opened my trunk, found the document, came over. The visibility was very dark. It was the sun had set and the dusk was going. It was getting darker every minute. So I came over, but before I could get to Erich's room, I saw him washing his face outside by the tap that is outside of his room. So I stood, and he completed washing his face. He got up, he wiped his face with a towel that's hanging on his cabin. And then, instead of coming towards his room, when I said, Erich, I've got the document, he turned his back on me and started walking toward the field. That's at the back of his room there. And he said, come. I followed. I could barely see. I didn't understand why he was doing that, but I followed. And he walked and stood at the edge of the field, looking out at the field. And I stood beside him. It was pretty darkish then. And he said, can you hear? And I said, yeah. And I strained my ears, and sure enough, I could hear sheep calling out. And I realized that they must have been put in an enclosure for the night on this field. And they were saying, ba, 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 calling out to each other. Ba, I sounded like they were calling Baba. And he said, can you see? Can you see? So I strained my eyes, and sure enough, some of the sheep were white. So I could see their restless movements in that pen that they were, in that thorny enclosure that they were. So I could see their restless movements as they were calling out, ba, ba. I said, yes, I can see the sheep. He said, no, to the left. Can you see to the left? So I couldn't see anything to the left, but when I strained my eyes, a little distance from the enclosure, I saw what looked like a big rock. And I even thought, I said, what is that rock doing out in that field? There could be no big rock in the field. And then my next impression, it's not a rock. It's the shepherd. And he was sitting with that homespun blanket all wrapped around him and sitting still as a rock. And I said, yes, I see. It's the shepherd. And Nero said, yes. And he said, the sheep cannot see him because it is dark. And they think the shepherd has left them. So they are restless and they are calling out. They think the shepherd has deserted his flock. But he is sitting there, and all night through he will have his eye on them, keep his watch over them. And when the dawn comes, they will realize he was here all the time with them. And that to me was such a great comfort. I didn't say anything. I knew what he meant. Gave the documents and went back. Even that was created by Baba. This perfect situation for this perfect weather. They all restlessly calling out, Baba, Baba. Cannot see him because it's dark. But when the dawn comes, and he wasn't moving, he was like a rock. His eyes on his flock, watching them all the time. He gets caught out at doing that nowadays, I find, sometimes. You can see Baba's hands so clearly in so many of the things.